Formula One drivers earn millions and race across 5 continents in a 24-race season. So it's natural to assume they all own private jets. They don't. In fact, among the entire 2026 Formula One grid, only one current driver is really open about his ownership. It even stirs up a bit of national pride. The rest rely on charter companies, team aircraft or family-owned planes. This video separates fact from fiction. Exactly which F1 figures own private jets in 2026, what aircraft they fly, the registrations, the price tags, and why genuine ownership is far rarer than social media suggests. Times have really changed since the Ecclestone era. Bernie Ecclestone, F1's former Supremo, has long owned his own Dassault Falcon 7X, registered N999BE, the BE being his own initials naturally. It's a 14 to 16 seat, roughly $40 million trijet with the range to cross most of the planet. But he seems to belong to a dying breed. Surprisingly, as of the 2026 season, Max Verstappen is the only current Formula One driver with clearly documented personal ownership of a modern long-range private jet, a Dassault Falcon 8X registered PH-UTL. Lewis Hamilton previously owned a Bombardier Challenger 605, but he sold it in 2019 and hasn't been verified to own a private jet since. Every other driver frequently seen flying private uses charter services or borrowed aircraft with no public record of personal ownership. So how do they fly private and enjoy all the perks without owning any of it? Why private jets are almost essential. First, let's discuss why private aviation does matter so much in Formula One. The 2026 Formula One calendar features 24 races spread across Europe, Asia, North America, South America, the Middle East, and Australia. Drivers often have only a few days between race weekends, and in that window they have to fit in simulator work, sponsor commitments, recovery sessions, and media appearances, all while crossing multiple time zones. In this case, time is not only money, it is essential for recovery, preparation, and execution for the next race. Commercial airlines simply can't offer that kind of flexibility, and depending on the city, most commercial airports are flooded with F1 fans and travelers all through race weekend. Private aviation saves valuable hours and lets a driver leave the circuit almost immediately after the race, often with a police escort, and fly direct. How many times have we seen drivers and team principals slip away early, while we journalists are still stuck at the track until closing time? But it's not just about speed. It solves a whole pile of logistical headaches too. Private terminals are far less crowded than commercial ones, and you can land relatively discreetly. Even in this age of jet tracking, where everyone with a phone can follow your tail number. It also makes life with fans and paparazzi a lot easier. You can't avoid the cameras completely. Nobody can. But it's a lot less obvious. No pushing through a packed terminal, no small talk, no forced smiling for the public when you've just lost a race and want to disappear. And then there's the simple stuff, less stress, less hassle, and personal customization you just don't get anywhere else. A restrictive diet catered exactly to your plan, easier sleep, a familiar crew who know how you like things. Add it all up, and owning your own jet becomes very enticing. Then there is the privacy aspect. Having a real conversation with family, friends, or business partners and worry about being overheard by other passengers, unknown crew members you may not trust. But here's the catch. Owning an aircraft is far more expensive than simply chartering one. A modern business jet costs tens of millions of dollars up front, with annual operating costs that can easily exceed $2 million a year. That's exactly why only one current driver on the grid owns one outright. But there are others within F1 who really rely on owning a private jet. What jet does Max Verstappen own? So let's start with the one man who actually owns his ride. In late 2022, Verstappen upgraded from an older Dassault Falcon 900EX to a brand new Dassault Falcon 8X, one of the most advanced ultra-long-range business jets in the world. Key facts about Verstappen's Falcon 8X: registration PH-UTL. The letters stand for Unleash the Lion. Also the name of his 33-meter yacht. Published list price: approximately $58 million. Verstappen's exact figure was never disclosed, and buyers typically negotiate significant discounts. Range: roughly 6,450 nautical miles, enough to fly Bahrain to Melbourne or Miami to Monaco non-stop. Engines: 3 Pratt & Whitney Canada PW307D turbofans. Capacity: typically around 12 passengers, configurable up to 16. Operator: owned by Verstappen but operated by Exaro, a Dutch private jet firm that also runs his older Falcon 900EX on charter flights. For Verstappen, the 8X is a practical tool, not just a status symbol. Its range lets him fly directly between continents and squeeze the most recovery time out of a 24-race schedule and spend time with his two daughters. Did Lewis Hamilton own a private jet? The other name people always assume owns a jet is, of course, Lewis Hamilton. And he did once. Around 2013, Hamilton bought a Bombardier Challenger 605, reportedly valued at around 29 to 30 million US dollars, registered G-LCDH, and instantly recognizable for its red livery. For years, it was one of the most photographed private jets in Formula One. It also caused a bit of a stir. Back in the 2017 Paradise Papers, it emerged that Hamilton had picked up a $5.2 million VAT refund on that jet, via a scheme that routed its first flight through the Isle of Man, a British Crown dependency any Brit will recognize as a rather convenient spot for the super rich. No wrongdoing was ever proven, and his team insisted everything was above board. But the optics weren't exactly great. Then in 2019, Hamilton sold the aircraft, later citing environmental concerns as a major factor. He still travels privately when the logistics demand it, but there's no verified public evidence he currently owns a jet. He's widely understood to charter these days. Not entirely sure how that saves the planet, but a smart move nonetheless. Who owns the biggest private jet in the F1 paddock? The most capable private jet associated with Formula One belongs not to a driver, but to Mercedes team principal Toto Wolff. Wolff has been a full-range Bombardier customer for over 15 years. In 2022, Bombardier named him a worldwide brand ambassador, highlighting his career as an investor, entrepreneur, and F1 team owner. Key facts about the Bombardier Global 7500: range approximately 7,700 nautical miles, capable of flights such as London to Singapore non-stop. List price approximately 81 million US dollars. Features 4 separate living spaces, a full-size galley, a private sleeping area, and room for up to 19 passengers. The aircraft is a familiar sight throughout the F1 season and is regularly used to transport members of the Mercedes circle between races, and even drivers from competing teams. What about Lawrence and Lance Stroll? Then there's the Stroll family, and here private aviation is practically a lifestyle. Aston Martin executive chairman Lawrence Stroll, a fashion billionaire, doesn't just fly private, he runs a whole operation. He currently owns a Bombardier Global 7500, one of the longest-range jets money can buy, registered OE-LLS, plus a Bell 429 helicopter registration T7-LLS. Before the 7500, he had a Global 6000. His son Lance, the Aston Martin driver, has his own jet too, most often reported as a Bombardier Challenger 604 that flies with no logo at all. But the detail F1 fans know best is the helicopter. Lawrence has made stepping off a chopper at the paddock into something of a personal trademark. And it's not just for show at the track. Analysis of his flights found the vast majority were short helicopter hops, mostly around London and Switzerland, often under 15 minutes. Silverstone factory to a London airport, then the jet onward to the family's Swiss base or back to Canada. The chopper simply erases the traffic in between. And here too, the Strolls are far from alone. Hopping from Nice airport to Monaco by helicopter is almost standard practice on the F1 calendar. A few minutes in the air instead of a crawl along the coast road, neatly dodging the traffic, the paparazzi, and the overeager fans all at once. How much does it cost to own a private jet in F1? What are we really talking about money-wise? These machines sit at wildly different price points. Verstappen's Falcon 8X runs around $58 million new. Toto Wolff's Bombardier Global 7500 and Lawrence Stroll's, since they fly the same top-tier model, sits even higher, in the region of $75 to $80 million apiece. By contrast, the entire AlphaTauri team HondaJet cost a little over $5 million, less than a tenth of what the big boys are flying. Obviously, there's a rather liquid market for used private jets, and it's where the smart money tends to look. A pre-owned Falcon 8X averages closer to $39 million against roughly $58 million new. And every one of these machines carries a story, quietly handed from one owner to the next. Take Max. His first jet wasn't new at all. It was a 2008 Falcon 900EX he picked up in 2020 for around $16 million, and its previous owner was none other than Sir Richard Branson, who'd flown it under Virgin colors. Max made it his own, matte black, orange Dutch accents, his lion badge on the tail, and the registration PH-DTF, the DTF standing with a wink for down to fly. Even his current Falcon 8X isn't factory fresh. It was built in 2022 and wore 2 other registrations before he took delivery in February 2025 and turned it into PH-UTL. And the wheel keeps turning. That old 900EX is now listed for sale on Dassault's own pre-owned pages, lion stripped from the tail, though one orange stripe still lingers. Someone else's turn to fly like a champion. If that's your world, the deals, the price tags, and how the ultra-wealthy actually shop, we cover exactly that on our dedicated luxury shopping channel. Links in the description. But it is not only the buying that counts. Owning a private jet comes with financial obligations. Lots of them. Annual operating costs can run anywhere from roughly $2 million to $4 million US, depending on the aircraft and how often it flies. That covers pilots, cabin crew, fuel, maintenance, insurance, hangar space, navigation fees, and scheduled inspections. A Falcon 8X alone carries an annual budget of around $4.5 million once you add it all up. For most F1 drivers, even those on 8-figure salaries, chartering an aircraft only when it's needed is often the more sensible financial call. That's the main reason genuine ownership stays so rare on the grid. But then, how do the rest of the drivers still get to enjoy the sweet perks of private travel without owning one? The answer is surprisingly simple: share or hitchhike. Which F1 drivers fly private but don't own a jet? You won't believe it, but we regularly bump into F1 drivers on the plane to a Grand Prix, of course, while shuffling past them down the aisle toward the economy section at the very back. Because here's the thing, even F1 drivers can't fly private all the time. When the schedule, the route, or the logistics don't line up, they're in that cabin with the rest of us. Just usually a few rows further forward. But given the choice, most would take a private jet in a heartbeat, if only to dodge the stress of a packed public terminal. So let's look at who actually flies private without owning the plane. Because Lewis is in very good company. Being photographed boarding a private jet doesn't mean a driver owns it. Plenty of them fly private all the time, yet have no verified record of personal ownership. Charles Leclerc lives in Monaco with easy access to one of Europe's busiest business aviation hubs, frequently photographed boarding private aircraft, but no verified ownership record. The aircraft he uses are believed to be chartered. Norris regularly flies private between Monaco, the UK, and race venues. No reliable public evidence of personal ownership. Believed to rely on charter flights. George Russell travels privately at times, particularly after European races. No ownership record. Carlos Sainz makes regular use of private aviation. No verified ownership information. Believed to charter Fernando Alonso. One of the busiest schedules in motorsport with numerous business commitments. Flies private frequently, but no publicly verified evidence of personal ownership. Believed to primarily charter Oscar Piastri. Commonly seen using private aviation. No verified record of personal ownership. A clear, real-world example came right after the 2026 Chinese Grand Prix in March. Valtteri Bottas posted a photo alongside George Russell and Lewis Hamilton, thanking Toto Wolff for the lift home. As Bottas later explained, the commercial flights out of Shanghai were a mess, so Wolff simply offered him a seat back to Monaco. 3 drivers, 1 jet, and the aircraft belonged to Wolff, not to any of them. Exactly the kind of problem a private jet quietly solves. And it's not only individuals, whole teams fly private too. Back in 2020, Honda handed Red Bull's junior team, AlphaTauri, its very own HondaJet Elite. Registration OE-FAA, engines stamped with Honda branding, tail and winglets in team colors. Red Bull owns 2 F1 teams, and this was the one that got the plane. It made its debut at the Italian Grand Prix. The same weekend, Pierre Gasly pulled off his shock win at Monza. Now this is a very different machine from Verstappen's Falcon. The HondaJet Elite is a nimble little light jet with a range of about 1,400 nautical miles. Enough to zip between European cities like London and Rome, but not to cross an ocean. And that's exactly the point. It was built for the short and medium-range hops that clog up the calendar, ferrying drivers, staff and officials around the continent and even previewing circuits. Drivers like Yuki Tsunoda came up through that system, powered by Honda on the track and flown by Honda in the air. And it's not just the drivers and team bosses, the sports power brokers fly private too. Current F1 CEO Stefano Domenicali and FIA President Mohammed Ben Sulayem crisscross the globe constantly for a 24-race calendar. But they lean on private and charter aviation as a tool of the job rather than as documented personal jet owners. Fitting, given F1 itself just signed FlexJet as its official private aviation supplier for 2026. The smarter solution. For F1 drivers and for you. Here's the thing the Paddock figured out long ago. You don't have to own the jet to fly like you do. That's the whole idea behind fractional ownership, and it isn't new. NetJets pioneered the model back in the 60s. Instead of buying a whole aircraft, you buy a share, say a 16th of a specific jet, which entitles you to a set number of flight hours a year, with the operator handling the cruise, the maintenance, and the scheduling. You get the private jet experience without the $80 million check or the $4 million a year running costs. NetJets is still going strong today, owned by Warren Buffett's Berkshire Hathaway and now the largest private jet operator in the world. But the name to know in Formula One right now is FlexJet. In 2026, FlexJet became the sport's official private aviation supplier, the jet partner of F1 itself. And once you look at how it works, it's easy to see why the fit is so natural. FlexJet is built for exactly the kind of traveler who values time, privacy, and zero hassle. It runs its own modern fleet, Embraers, Challengers, Globals, Gulfstreams, rather than acting as a middleman, and its flagship Red Label program is the detail that sells it. Dedicated crews assigned to a single pool of aircraft, so the same familiar team looks after you every time, plus catered fine dining and its own signature cabin interiors. That's the private jet dream, the familiar crew, the customized comfort, the walk straight from car to cabin, without buying the plane. And crucially, there's an on-ramp for almost every level of flyer, jet card, the easiest entry point. You prepay a block of flight hours, FlexJet's card starts at 25 hours, then simply fly, at fixed, predictable hourly rates. No aircraft to buy, no long-term commitment. Perfect if you fly under 50 hours a year, leasing, the benefits of a share, but with structured monthly payments instead of a big upfront outlay, and a clean exit at the end of the term. Fractional ownership, the full experience for frequent flyers doing 50+ hours a year, a genuine share in an aircraft, guaranteed access, and the ability to interchange up or down to other jets, or even helicopters as your trip demands. If jumping into a program feels like a lot, the wider market has even lighter options. On-demand charter apps like XO and FX Air let you book a single flight with no membership at all, while empty leg and semi-private services such as JSX sell individual seats on repositioning flights at a fraction of the usual cost. The point is simple. The reason genuine ownership stays rare on the F1 grid isn't that private travel is out of reach. It's that the smart money rarely buys the whole plane. Drivers share, charter, or simply hitchhike with their buddies who own private jets. And the good news is that the exact same playbook, the same operators, the same programs is open to you, especially if you are friends with Toto Wolff or a friend of the Stroll family. So, could you live the F1 jet set lifestyle? Honestly, you're closer than you think. We've put the links to all of them in the description below, including FlexJet, F1's own official aviation partner for 2026. If you're curious about what it actually costs to fly private, start there. You might be surprised. As for the author, he will be looking out for his economy seat at the back of the plane, but with platinum status, extra legroom, more carry-on luggage, and if he's lucky, an extra piece of candy. But the frequent flyer secrets of common F1 people traveling for work, well, that's a story for another episode. Thanks for watching.